Daniel in Texas, you're on the Ben Shapiro Show. Go for it, Daniel.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. I have a question, but it takes a little explanation. This weekend, there was a event that solidified with me that I need to have a carry license and be carrying. We were driving down the road, and the guy took a random shot at our vehicle with my kids in it. I was just wondering what would happen if I'd been carrying and I had returned fire and hit him.
Well, if you're under deadly threat and you act in self-defense to prevent a threat to yourself or your child, then you'd be okay. If you hit somebody else in the process, then you'd be in trouble, presumably. But again, self-defense is still the law across the United States. It really doesn't matter the location. If you're walking down the street and someone takes a shot at you and you defend yourself, then you basically be all right. But, obviously, I don't know where you were or what event this was, but it sounds pretty dangerous. Daniel, I appreciate the call. Stay safe out there. Ariel in Dublin, California, you're on the Ben Shapiro Show. Ariel, rather. Welcome to the Ben Shapiro Show. Go for it, Ariel.
Hi, Dan.
Go for it.
Hi, Dan. I'm a big fan. Now, I don't want to assume your gender, but I don't think you were a preteen girl in the late 80s like I was.
I was not.
And the Babysitter's Club was the Babysitter's Club was one of the biggest book series at that time, and it was one of my favorites. And when I heard Netflix was making a new TV series, I was really looking forward to watching it with my girls. And then I found out they made the whole series woke, including an entire episode on transgenderism. And I just think this is one of the most insidious examples of straight up indoctrination in media towards kids. And I'm afraid my girls are going to be taught that their gender is whatever they want it to be. And shows like this make it sounding like changing your sex is no big deal, when in reality, it involves medicalizing, mutilating, and sterilizing children. But they never discuss that part.
Yep, it is. That is exactly right. It is amazing how children's programming has been infused with all of the social justice warrior messaging nonsense. I mean, they haven't gotten to the preschool stuff yet, although they're trying to ban Paw Patrol. But the preteen stuff particularly, they really are loading up with an enormous amount of social justice warrior messaging. You can see this, for example, ABC used to have a channel called ABC Family. Right? It used to be called ABC Family, and now I believe it's called Freeform. They shifted it because they wanted it to be more progressive. They wanted it to be more edgy, and they changed their content over, right? There's a channel that used to sort of air old episodes of The Waltons, and now it would do stuff like Gossip Girl because it wanted to push particular viewpoints on humanity. The notion that you're going to ladle in transgenderism into the Babysitter's Club, which, as you say, is really not directed toward 25-year-old people who can consider the arguments, but it's directed toward 11 and 12-year-olds. It's fully insane, and it is propaganda. There's no question. I mean, I seriously doubt that any of this TV show was about the costs of gender transformation or the regret or the fact that you actually can't change your gender or about any of the myriad deleterious effects. One of the big problems with transgenderism has been well documented by my friend Abigail Schreier. She has a book out right now that's worthy of the read. Is something called rapid onset gender dysphoria, which is a situation in which particularly preteen girls are being convinced that they may in fact be transgender when in fact they are just depressed or unhappy or have another mental condition. And what you can see is that one girl in a group of girls who are simultaneously experiencing some sort of issue, but not transgenderism, not gender dysphoria, if one of them declares they're gender dysphoric, then suddenly a lot of them declare they are gender dysphoric. And this is why you've seen a radical shift, statistically speaking, from gender dysphoria being diagnosed in men and biological boys, to gender dysphoria overwhelmingly now in places like Britain being diagnosed in young girls who are declaring themselves gender dysphoric. And because gender dysphoria doesn't really have a supremely solid definition, then being listened to, being given hormone therapy, being given treatments, and parents being banned from being able to stop them from doing any of this stuff in the name of social justice and wokeness and sympathy. So, yeah, I mean, this stuff is ugly. It's propaganda. I mean, I hope that nobody watches it then. I mean, if they're going to ladle in a bunch of leftist propaganda on gender, which does have some damaging ramifications for people. Again, I'm not going to be teaching my daughter that she can become a boy, nor will I be teaching my son that he can become a girl. That is a value judgment that is anti-science. And, you know, if somebody suffers from gender dysphoria, like truly suffers from gender dysphoria, I wish them nothing but the best. I wish them the best in their treatment. And when they're adults, if they decide that they want to make decisions that I think might not be right, but are right for them, then it's a free country. But if you think that anybody should be going along with the idea that 11-year-olds should be getting hormone treatments, or that 11-year-olds, instead of wateful watching, which is the strategy that basically says we wait and we watch and we see what happens, instead of pursuing that, we push the idea that we are supposed to reaffirm your new gender, that's insanity. And if that's being pushed by the entertainment community, that's nothing but propaganda.
Well, I just want to say that what's really crazy about this show is that Netflix rated it G. So normally when you have parental controls, like if it was rated PG, then you would not be able to see it if you only wanted your kids to see G. So the only way parents can keep this show away from their girls from just their account is they have to literally go into their Netflix account, and there's a way for you to say, like, I don't want any of this show on my account. Wow. So they have to delete it completely from like their entire platform. But most people don't know that. And most people think, oh, the Babysitters Club, I love the Babysitters Club. What a wholesome show. But it's not. It's teaching girls some really dangerous ideas about themselves that if they think is right for them can lead to the road of like sterilizing them when they're teenagers. It's crazy.
It is crazy. And I'm glad that you brought it up. I hope that hopefully this, you've brought some more attention to it, and hopefully listeners to the show now recognize what exactly is implicit in the show. That's pretty terrifying stuff. Ariel, I really appreciate the call, and thanks for the information. Samantha in Denver, Colorado, you're on the Ben Shapiro Show. Go for it, Samantha.
Hi, Ben. Great to talk to you. So I attended a pro-police rally in Denver on Sunday. We were met with a Black Lives Matter / Antifa activist protest, and several of our rally goers were beaten and attacked. I myself had, a big guy get in my face and repeatedly threatened to slit my throat. So it was insane.
So it was mostly peaceful. What you're telling me, Samantha, is it was mostly peaceful, according to the media, right?
Right. And wondering why we were attacking these peaceful protesters. It's crazy, but I think a lot of people, especially on kind of the right side of the aisle, are wondering, should we continue to have these events? Should we continue to even try to stand up for our patriotism and support our officers, and try to stand up for American values if there's a threat of a protest? Because a lot of people don't want to be faced with this, but, I don't want to invite people into a dangerous situation, but at the same time, should we still be standing up for America, for our country?
I mean, I think what you're doing is deeply important. I can never, tell people that they should risk life and limb by going to a rally in the United States, but what you're doing is really important. The fact, again, the media are lying about so much of this stuff. The media trying to suggest that if you crack down on rioting and looting, you're actually cracking down on protesting. If you crack down on violence, you're actually cracking down on mostly peaceful protesters. The media have just been derelict in their coverage of this sort of stuff, and it really is maddening and insane. As far as personal decisions to either back off or show your support, listen, I think that more of us standing up and showing support for the police is absolutely necessary at this time, or you're going to watch your community go down the drain. I mean, we're seeing this already in Los Angeles, where the murder rate is up. We're seeing it in New York and Chicago. You're doing absolutely the right thing, but we can't pretend that the media are either going to treat this with any amount of objectivity, or frankly, that even the police are being emboldened and empowered to protect you if God forbid something bad happens at these places, because the political actors have basically told the police hands off with a lot of these protests, even while they go ahead and commit acts of violence. So it's pretty incredible. So Samantha, what was the ending of it? I mean, was anybody, really injured?
There was one of our main organizers of the event. He was hit in the head. I think it was with a longboard, and he ended up with, a big gash across his forehead. Some of our others, the protesters had collapsible batons that they were walking around with. There were a couple other people that were shoved downstairs and ended up with bumps and bruises. And that's exactly, with the police officers, they were told by our local, mayor and governor to stand down and to not engage. So they were nearby, but it really had to come down to somebody actually being physically assaulted for them to step in.
Oh, amazing stuff. Samantha, thanks for doing what you're doing, and stay safe out there. I mean, if you can. Really appreciate it. Amy in Seattle, you're on the Ben Shapiro Show. Go for it, Amy.
Hi, good morning. I wanted your advice regarding navigating cancel culture as a young conservative woman. Living in Seattle, I frequently see family and friends posting misinformation and skewed statistics on social media, and I want to provide the actual facts. I am a CPA at a Big Four accounting firm, and I would never want to jeopardize my career by getting canceled for speaking the truth. So my question would be, how do I balance speaking out on important issues today, like Black Lives Matter and defunding the police, while being careful as to not lose my job?
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very difficult, Amy. And honestly, I can't actually suggest that social media is the best way to do this. I think that interpersonal conversation is probably better. Social media, the problem is that anything can be taken out of context and used against you. People can act as though they are offended when they are not. It's an ugly cancel culture out there. So I've never advised people that it is their duty to speak up when it means losing their job and not being able to support their family. I think that that's a personal choice that everybody has to make. But certainly the possibility of cancel culture is out there. I mean, I was just reading a story a few moments ago about a story about a school teacher who was fired for the great sin of saying President Trump is our president. Literally, that's all he said, and he got fired for it. So we're now living in a world where you can get canceled for everything and anything. So if you value your job, don't count on your bosses to stand up for you, because I really, really doubt they will. I mean, this is the story of the last several years in the United States, is people basically manipulating bosses into firing people that they don't like. And if you fall into that, yeah, there's not much you can do about it, unfortunately. So all I would recommend is that if you're going to have conversations with people, do it offline, because that way it becomes more of a you telling the truth and the other person fibbing about what you said to them conversation, as opposed to, here's a post that I found particularly offensive because you didn't put a black square on your Twitter or something.
Right. Thank you.
Amy, I really appreciate it. Hang in there, Seattle. Not a great place to live at this point in time. Derek in Chicago, Illinois. You're on the Ben Shapiro Show. How's it going, Derek?
Ben, I love you, man. Thanks for, speaking out so much, man. And I just want to encourage you to keep on the good path, man. But I just wanted to ask you, do you think, number one, do you think weed is a sin? And number two, what do you think about Lori Lightfoot in Chicago? That whole fifth grade behavior stuff between her and Trump. What do you make of that?
Well, she's a terrible mayor. I mean, I don't know what else to say about a person who's spending all of her time ripping on the police while dozens of people get shot in her city every weekend. And she's just awful at her job. Yeah. The fact that she's blaming Republicans and lack of gun control for violence in Chicago is patently insane. I mean, frankly, Derek, you may be the only person left in Chicago who hasn't been shot, and I'm making an assumption here. So it's pretty wild.
One last thing, Ben. Do you think you'd ever do Howard Stern, man? Because I think that would be a great interview.
Well, if he asks, we'll consider it. I appreciate it, Derek.